She said that I'm from Tennessee, and the next speaker I'm going to introduce happens to be from the great state of Texas. And Tennessee and Texas have a great relationship. In 1836, about 30 Tennesseans joined Texians, I think is how that's pronounced on Wikipedia. They protected the Alamo, and they all died together. And here we are again, some 200 plus or 100 so many years later, standing together, Tennesseans, Texans, people from Pennsylvania, all over. This congressman I have a great deal of respect for. I've followed him twice through the Capitol halls for 3 or 4 hours, and just a wealth of tremendous information about the Capitol and our great country and the history of it. He served 3 terms as a district judge in Texas. Eventually, Rick Perry appointed him to serve a term as the Chief Justice of the 12th District Court of Appeals. And now he's in his 4th term as Congressman of the 1st District of the great state of Texas. Please welcome Congressman Louie Gohmert.
Oh, thank you. Y'all are too kind. Well, I really will be quick, because we had blocked out 9:45 to 10 for me to be here to speak, but I wasn't about to miss the chance, so people are stacking up back in the office. But listen, I knew we would have freshmen here, and so let me direct some things to the freshmen. First of all, it's incredible the pressure you're under. You're constantly speaking, as our freshmen know, man, like never before. And it helps if you start off with something humorous. So I'll give you a couple that I haven't heard anybody but me tell, so they ought to be good in your districts. Couple have been married a really long time, and the husband says, look, I hope you've noticed I've really been working on my anger issues, and I think I'm doing a lot better. And she said, I think you are too. It's obvious you're making an effort. And he said, but all these years we've been married, you've always controlled your anger so much better than me. What's your secret? How have you done it? I know you get mad at me, but you always are under such control. How do you do that? And she said, well, the truth is, when I really get angry with you, I just go clean the toilet. And he said, that works? She said, well, I used your toothbrush. So anyway, another husband and wife, a woman was asked, you guys have just been married 40 years and you seem like a perfect marriage. What do you attribute that to? And she said, well, we are a perfect marriage. We met in college. He was a communications major, and I was a theater arts major. So for 40 years, he's communicated extremely well, and for 40 years, I've acted like I was listening. So anyway, all right. Well, if that wasn't good, one more. A dad said he calls a family meeting with his wife and son and said, look, I just saw our phone bill is $200 for last month, and I never used the phone all month. He turns to his wife. What's the deal? What is it so high? He said, it's not mine, I know, because I only use my office phone. And his wife said, well, I use my office cell phone. I never use the home phone, so don't look at me. It's not mine. They look at their son, and he said, well, since I got a job, my office phone my cell phone's all I use. I just use my office cell phone. I never use his phone. And they all three turned around and looked at the housekeeper, and she said, well, don't look at me. Sounds like we all use our work phone. Anyway. But some just real quick principles. When I got here, and we said the same thing as freshmen that everybody had before us. Gee, it is like trying to get a drink of water from a fire hydrant. You just get deluged, you get overwhelmed. And folks, please support your new member of Congress or your current member of Congress, it is overwhelming when you get here. Now, I knew Robert's Rules of Orders. I was really good at whatever club or church or whatever. I knew the rules, and I thought, man, I'm going to be really something when I get to Congress. They don't use Robert's Rules of Order here in Congress. They use Thomas Jefferson's Rules of the House as modified over 200 years. And they're weird rules. And it takes a long time to even get a grasp of some of them. So that's different. But the thing you keep getting hit with is the institutionality of this place and how it's so hard to get things done. And I'll never forget, as a freshman, standing up at our retreat, which turned out to be a real retreat, literally. But first of the year, every year, all of the Republican members of Congress have a meeting, a retreat, spend a couple of days together and make plans. And I asked, we had the speaker, the majority leader, and the chairman of the budget, I asked, why can't we eliminate the automatic increases to every federal department's budget? It's been happening for 30 years or so. Why can't we stop that? And the Republican chairman of the budget committee looks at me. I'm back at the member mic. He's up at the front with the leadership at their mic. And he says, because it's the law. And I just looked at him, and I didn't even say anything. I was so overwhelmed with that response. And I just went. And he said, you're right, we make the law. You're right, we make the law. I didn't even have to say it. He knew how stupid that was. It's the law, so we have to follow it. But that was the mentality. And so for 7 years, I have been pushing a zero baseline budget bill, eliminate the automatic increases. And a year ago, I got the speaker to promise me that if Paul Ryan brought the zero baseline budget bill out of committee, he would bring it to the floor for a vote. I got Paul Ryan to promise me, and Paul had supported. He'd been a co-sponsor each Congress I filed the bill. And he did, and he was the new chairman. And he got it out of committee, and we brought it to the floor, and we got it voted through the House. And now we need the Senate to do something. And I think it can be an election year issue that we demand the Senate do it, or we'll defeat every Democratic senator that refuses to join with the Republicans. So 2 years from now, we ought to be able to drive that message and defeat it. So the point from that is, when people that are become a part of the institution, as wonderful and devoted as our leaders are, keep in mind they've been a little bit institutionalized. And if you stay long enough, probably everybody should be institutionalized. But it is important to not just accept things. And the other thing, now, Paul Ryan may be the smartest financial mind we've got in Congress. And Paul had come to Congress and had worked in a congressional office, and he understood how the system worked. As brilliant as Paul is, he had some of that drilled into him. Well, this is the way it's been done, and so we'll make a little change here. And he knew so well how the system worked, he could say, well, if we adjust this percentage here, we move this here, we can make the adjustments. I have made it my goal to try to get the smart, brilliant people like Paul in Congress to understand we are playing in the Democrats' arena that they constructed in 1974 with the most liberal Congress until Pelosi got the gavel. They put the rules in place, and we're playing with their rules ever since. We can't win by their rules. They created all of these departments, and my friend Ernie he and I served together. Boy, you talk about brilliant. He's with Heritage now. They got another guy over there named Robert Rector. Robert spends 2 years finding all of the welfare that's hidden in all the different committees, because that's the way the Democrats designed it. So, and I mentioned this yesterday, but Dan Webster was a Speaker of the House in Florida, and he loved transportation issues. He took it on himself to, just as a matter of trivia, find out how many federal agencies are charged with getting people to appointments. 87. And as he would talk to one committee chairman, do you know how many agencies under your committee are charged with getting people to appointments? Yes, 7. Yes, we have 5. They all knew about their little area. But if you try to attack one of those and say it's redundant because all you're taking up is that one committee, they say, oh, you hate veterans, you hate women, you hate children. Whereas if we could break the mold and create a new arena that for the next 40 years, the Democrats, if they get back in the majority, God forbid, but if they get back in the majority, they got to play with real world rules. We can make the difference. We can force them. So I just want to challenge those of you who are here, God bless you, part of the Tea Party, challenge your Congress members, challenge your senators. Don't take the answer that, well, it's the way we have to do things, because it's not. We make our own rules, we make the law, and we can change things. But we have got to change the rules the way they are. We need to eliminate the automatic increases. We need to get a public assistance committee. Robert thought that would be better than calling it the welfare committee. And put all that stuff in one committee where we see all the duplication. And we say, no, I love women, I love children, I love veterans. But we don't need 87 agencies doing the same thing with all of the white vans that have 20-seat capacities, and they don't do anything. They don't care. That's how we can make a difference. And another thing, people keep saying it's just so hard to make cuts. Folks, in the pledge that our speaker made us take 2 years ago, I didn't draft the pledge, but I took it. We promised America that in the first year we would cut the budget by at least $100 billion, and we pledged that in that term we would return America to pre-bailout, pre-stimulus levels. And you go, well, you know, it's just so hard to make cuts. Folks, let me tell you, pre-bailout, pre-stimulus was the 2008 fiscal year that ended September 30th. TARP began the next week. And so that was part of the 2009 budget. 2008, the appropriations were done by a speaker named Pelosi and a Senate leader named Reid. And I never heard one Democrat in America say that 2008 appropriation did not spend enough money. Everybody thought it did. So why can we not beat that over their heads and say, we're going back to 2008. You didn't complain then about it not spending enough, and that cuts $1 trillion a year right there, right off the top. Good. So I would encourage you, think outside the box. It may take 7 years. It may take 2 or 3 years, but you can materially change the way Washington does business, and you can affect this country, project it for 40 more years, 100 more years. All we know is we can't keep doing business the way we have. And let me give you one final example, as my staff's saying you got to go. But TARP, September of 2008. We were told by Paulson that the sky was falling, and things were grim, things were dim. And I'm sure some of you believe, well, sound like you just had to do TARP, hold your nose. I read the bill. It was un-American to give one man $700 billion and say, you can spend it any way you want to, just save us. You can pay more than fair market value for assets. You can hold them as long as you want to. You can bail out any company, any bank, even a foreign bank, as long as it's not the central bank. You can do whatever you want. We have never done that in our history for one man since we've had a Constitution. Washington got that power December 27, 1776, but we didn't have a Constitution then. Since then, never. We should never have passed that bill. You do not set aside free market principles to save the free market, because if you have to, it's not worth saving. So I read the bill. And some of y'all maybe remember, I'll never forget the chronology. All right, it's gonna fall. It's gonna be terrible. The President of the United States, whom I love very much, he's smarter than people give him credit. He's a great man. I know Roger Williams over here, a new congressman. He was helping raise money for President Bush. He's one of our real solid Republicans from Texas. And we love President Bush. But President Bush listened to his Wall Street advisors like Paulson, and he is such an honorable man. He believed them, and he shouldn't have. Because the truth is, there were alternatives. I'll give you one example. We had a former FDIC chair and 300 economists propose, look, don't use U.S. government money to buy the mortgage-backed securities. All you got to do is say, all right, we know we got at least $700 billion. Turns out we got more than $1 trillion. American individuals have money in foreign banks, earned in foreign countries. They paid taxes in foreign countries. If they bring it in here, they may pay as much as 50% tax, so it's not coming into America. But if you pass a law, not to give Paulson just carte blanche to do whatever he wants, but to say, you know what? If you will bring your money in from overseas and buy the mortgage-backed securities or prop up the auto industry, if you'll bring your private money into this country and prop up and bail out and do what Paulson said the government had to do, then it will still be free market, but there will be no taxes on what you bring in and do. We could have sucked all that money out of foreign banks, had private industry, private individuals doing what private people should have done, instead of the government borrowing 42 cents of every dollar to socialize this country. And I'll never forget, you know, we were lucky the market only fell 777 points on Monday, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When the president says, if you don't pass this, and the Treasury Secretary says, if you don't pass this, the market's going to crash, be worse than 29. We're lucky it only fell 777 points. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it fell that far, and by Friday, the president, our leader, John Boehner, and others had convinced enough of the Republicans, you got to join in so we can save the country and vote for TARP. I had some of my biggest donors call me and say, Louie, I was with you on Monday when you voted no, but we can't stand another drop like this. I had the man who raised money for me more than any other. He knew my family from Mount Pleasant. He knew me. He believed in me. He raised more money than anybody to help me get elected judge when we desperately needed a new judge. He helped me raise money. He stood up for me to run and get elected for Congress. An older gentleman, I love him dearly, and he called on Wednesday and said, Louie, enough with the games. You got to vote yes. We've got to pass TARP. And it broke my heart. And I said, I read the bill. I can't vote for it. It's wrong for America, trust me. And he said, look, I thought so too, but we just can't stand another drop like this. It's killing us. My bank has been hurt. Everybody's getting hurt. You just got to vote for it. And I said, I appreciate all you've done for me. I hope you know how much you mean to me. I can't vote for it. And I hung up, and I thought I'd ended a great friendship. A year later, I was at his bank, and he called me in to the chairman's office, and his secretary said, Chairman wondered if you would come by. I said, sure. And he said, and he's a big guy, and I look up to him literally. He said, I needed to apologize. I panicked. You didn't. And I'm grateful to have a congressman who, when I panic, keeps his head. And even though I've raised more money for him than anybody, he still tells me what has to be done and stands by his principle. I'm telling you, you may lose some friends when you stand up and do what you know is right, but I encourage you, do it anyway. God bless you all.
That man is an American hero.